Hey Josh, good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. So I'm going to segue right into Jets actually looked good on Thursday Night Football for once on a primetime game. No injuries, or no injuries to the quarterback at least. Winning, but something I never thought I would say, but it was the Patriots. So it's too soon to really
Well,
evaluate
I
anything.
don't know. The Patriots have been looking. I mean, they've had like last year their defense was pretty solid, and this year it hasn't looked bad. So, you know what? As a Carolina Panthers fan, Matt, a win is a win. I don't know what those are anymore. We just have cloudy, gray gloom. So, you got yeah. It was a good game if you're a Jets fan.
Yeah, you guys should have hung on to Sam Darnold. He's looking
I
good all of a sudden.
Man, I don't even know. I don't even like there's so much there that we could have, should have, would have done. But I'm happy for them. They look good. Here in the Dakotas, the Vikings are our de facto home team. So I'm not a fan, but Minnesota sports are another tragedy. So I'll always root for them because they've been through enough. And yeah, the Vikings and they were counted out at the beginning of the season, but they are
Yeah,
playing
they look good
fierce right
too.
now. So but the Twins are losing, so they're almost out of the wild card race. It's yeah, sports, MSP Community Live Sports.
We could totally do a sports show. That'd be
100% we
awesome.
could. Yeah, I'm down.
Um, Mets look good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grimace. So I didn't think we'd be playing meaningful games in September at all. So the fact that we're still in the race this time of the year, good for me.
I mean, we Hanti's like had probably the single greatest offensive game anyone has ever had.
Oh
And
man, this is amazing.
yeah, so lots going on in the world of
50
sports.
50. I can't believe it. What did he have? 10 RBIs last night? That's crazy.
Yeah, insane. 6 for 6, like it's it's crazy. But yeah, a lot going on in the world of sports. But luckily, there's also a lot going on in the world of MSPs.
Nice
So,
segue.
are you ready to dive into these stories?
Yes, let's do it.
Perfect. All right. The first story we have an interesting question from today's prospect. Now, this is a very long story, but the whole point of it is he was asking the uh, the client Ray playing
I think
music.
we're playing three card Monty with the.
Which one is the ball under? Um, anyway, so the prospect is, hey, if I were to hire you to be our IT guy and I told you that I have Taylor Swift's mobile number on my computer, are you going to remote in and take a look at it? The guy's like, well, I don't really care for Taylor Taylor Swift and um, wouldn't do anything about it. And he's like, what about like Trump, Harris, Elon Musk, or any like the high powered people? And he's like, again, I would teach you how to use your system more securely and ask for a good password manager and not really like do anything. So the client is asking all of these weird questions to them. How would you handle this particular scenario?
So I just want to make sure I understand. Just to be transparent with the audience, I only have my laptop with me and can't read the stories at all. They look like they're written in like Swahili because they're so tiny on my screen. Um, so he's saying that it's a client with very sensitive information on their device
Yep.
and asking basically it's kind of a weird question because what I'm hearing the question phrased as is Mr. MSP technician, MSP owner, whoever he's talking to, do your employees have enough integrity to not look at things they're not supposed to be looking at? And what kind of question is that? Of course.
Yep.
Um, so the way I would answer it is I think the way that some of the comments took this, or I'm hoping that some of the comments took this, one, we have ethics and integrity and wouldn't look at it anyway, but two, there are technical controls that you should be using to be able to safeguard and separate and compartmentalize the administration of the systems versus the data on it, right? And just a trivial example, is now that MS Office uses real encryption and not something easily breakable like it did 10 years ago, right? Put it in a protected Excel spreadsheet. Um, you can administer the server and administer the workstations and deal with all the technical aspects without needing access to the application data, and that you can extract that any kind of you're working at. So I would really be hammering this at two angles. One, I'd really try to dig into, is there some kind of concern you have that you think my company's ethics are called into question for some reason? But two, aside from that discussion, explain the difference between access to the working data and administering and taking care of the systems. Sorry,
Yep.
pretty long answer, but I think that's how I would take it.
Yeah, and it seems like at one point he also the MSP or the person who posted this is asking, hey, why are you looking to replace the competitor? And the prospect said that we learned that he'd been reviewing our client list and we think that they were a target for marketing and he felt it was a breach of trust. So the
Yeah.
client's just trying to make sure, but it looks like he edited this from when I first read it, because there's a lot more to it, where there was a technical interview with a bunch of crazy questions and different sort of back and forth. So there's a lot of apparently red flags with this. So let's segue into that. Obviously, when you're prospecting clients, for potential partnerships, is there a point? I mean, you want to ask questions, right? But at what point, or is there a line where there's too many questions, or the types of questions being answered? Has a client ever given you like a technical assessment to answer to go over with?
No, but for the most part, we didn't do that much co-managed, which is, I think, why we didn't see it that often.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, the client was less interested, hopefully, in our raw technical skills versus the ability just to help them operationalize in their business. The technical skills are somewhat of a given, right? Anyone can deal with the keep the computers running. Hopefully, that's table stakes in this industry at this point. I did have somewhat technical. I've had prospects ask me technical things, but honestly, I think, and this is a guess, I don't know. I think it was them trying to show me that they had some idea what they were talking about, more so than an actual test to see if we did. Like almost as if to at the beginning of the relationship point out, hey man, you're not going to get one over on me. Like I have a clue what's going on, so don't BS me.
Yeah.
That's how I always took it.
Yeah. I do like, especially in a co-managed situation, to have that kind of technical. When you have a point of contact at a client that is a little bit technical, and you can't just, at that point, like, oh, you can't just tell him jargon and he's going to believe it, right? You have to back it up a bit. So
Which I
this
like.
this seems like a really long and fun story. So I recommend reading it. I actually am going to leave it up because I want to read the edit. But let's go ahead and go to the next one here. So this one is BNI best referral sources and the keys to success. So I was in one of these, and I think we don't have to limit it to BNI. We can kind of just talk about, what are good referral sources and how do you manage the referral sources. So this person is asking in particular specifics. They've been in BNI in the past and rejoined a bit ago. And after a year and a half, he's gotten next to nothing. So now he is being asked to do more in leadership and be more involved with the BNI, but he's one foot out the door. So how do you make that successful? I will say, to just kind of touch on BNI, that's one of, it's like if you're not unfamiliar with it, it's a group of business professionals from various verticals and things, like plumbers, real estate agents, lawyers, obviously, IT and things like that. They come together, and the whole point of it is to kind of have a close referral network. There are specific goals that you're setting to where you have like one-on-ones with different people. Each person gets a chance to present and get kind of like a sales pitch, and then, rewarding or coming up with like different referrals. And what's weird about that as far as an MSP goes is a lot of those are B2C customers, whereas an MSP is a B2B customer, right? So it's a little harder to get those. But again, you get into it what you put out of it. If you're taking the time and you're doing the one-to-ones, or you can use it as like a, hey, here's my sales pitch. If I'm coming to this, how does this sound? How can I fix it? They can be successful for you. But again, it is more of a B2C than a B2B thing. But throwing out the specific BNI, what are your recommendations on your referral sources?
So I won't talk about BNI or things like it too much. Those things to me always felt a little inorganic, I think is the right word. Everyone there is really just concerned about delivering their own pitch and feeling like, oh yeah, I have to sit through yours to get the opportunity to do mine. That was not very successful for us. The things, it's going to sound like such an easy, trivial answer, and I feel like we should go deeper than this. But the only thing that ever was a consistent source of referrals, existing clients. Like that's it. No matter how many Chamber of Commerce meetings we ended up in, or whatever groups or things like that, unless it was someone we had an existing relationship with, like either personal or business, the main source of referrals was client likes us, they go to their local, meeting of doctors, meeting of construction companies, what have you. Somebody, a friend in the group says, hey, I need IT service. Hey, these guys did a good job for me. Maybe they'll help you out, right? That's referral, because that has the social capital, the social trust behind it, that a round table, round robin set of referrals just doesn't come with, right? It doesn't have that authenticity, that existing relationship capital to say, okay, this is a vetted recommendation, not just referral for the sake of referral. And I'll go a step further and say that for the most part, things like vendor referrals for us almost never went anywhere. It was like, yeah, okay. I won't name any vendors, right? We're not the vendor attack show, but how many companies have you gone with that said things like, yeah, be a reseller for us and we'll send leads your way and things like that? And I can count on one hand the number that ever closed. Actually, it might take two fingers to make the zero sign. And I can probably count on one hand the ones that even came remotely close to closing. Like for us, it just wasn't worth almost anything.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw Ray commented that he was also in the BNI non-decision maker salespeople. I was lucky to be in a pretty good chapter in my previous MSP, and a little selfishly, but I had just moved to a new city, so it was cool to be in the chapter, because now, hey, if I need somebody who does car work or all this, like now I have trusted individuals I can go with. But it really was good for networking. As far as leads, we didn't get too many from it. But I started building those relationships. I mean, unfortunately, I left as I was like getting a law firm and like all this stuff. So it was in progress. But yeah, I really find it's more B2C, more salespeople than it is like actual business leaders. But to your point, yes, our client referrals is how we get our best referrals. And I was going to ask, did you guys as an MSP keep track of your NPS with your clients, Net Promoter Score, if for those not familiar with the acronym?
So yes, except if I start talking about my feelings about NPS, we will need like another episode.
I'm interested now.
So just real briefly, I do understand the value and the concept. The problem is that NPS is now so widely known that anyone who you ask that question of knows that they're answering an NPS question. And the idea of anything but a 9 or 10 is like a detractor. Like it's gamified. I know that I'm being asked an NPS score, so if my feelings are really a 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, I now know that I'm not giving the business anything valuable by providing that. And so I say, okay, I have to give them basically a 1 or a 10 for it to mean anything, and it kind of loses all meaning. I think it was more effective before the entire universe knew what NPS was.
Yeah. We'll say like we've our client referrals, we've had multiple people in C-level or management positions that we work with, and then they go to other companies that are in, or they become a C-level for another company, and we've gotten multiple with that. So your client referrals are definitely your strongest source of referrals that you have. And word of mouth advertising is free, so you can't
Yeah.
go wrong with that. But all right, well, I think we
I have
got
one
that
more thing
one.
on
Go
this.
ahead. Yeah.
You brought up a really, really good point, though, when you talked about the way that you use BNI when you first moved to a new area. This is something that's really important to remember and that I didn't get for quite a while. And that is when you're building your network and going to these events, and if you do go to the local chamber and any of that, you're going to build your network not necessarily to prospect, right? And it's easy to get sucked into this idea that I should always be selling and always looking for that everyone I meet's a potential customer. And maybe that's true in the grand long scheme of things, right? Long term, it might be a customer, but just growing your network and making contacts in your area, in your industry, is so extremely valuable, even if they don't close for all the reasons you mentioned, because when they hear someone that needs IT support, they'll think of you and refer to
Mhm.
you and be your champions in the industry. So um, these events are just as valuable for network building as they are for prospecting. And I think it's easy to get sucked into this was unsuccessful because no sales directly closed from that. It may be successful because you met 15 people and made a good impression on them.
Yeah, 100%. I still, even though I haven't been on our BNI chapter for, going on 2 years at this point, if I run into them every now and then, we still stop and talk. I still go to some of them, like the auto body or the mechanic. That's who I go to, because they're trusted. I built those relationships and have that. And they text me on the side every now and then for a computer issue. So I'm again, I'm very much, and not just BNI. This is just kind of how I tend to life in general. You get out of something what you put into it. So the
Yeah.
more involved you are, and the more you put into it, the more you're going to put to get out of it. So, um,
I've totally noticed that as I stopped doing MSP work and now on the vendor side, um, it was always nice having services around the city that were former clients. Like, oh, I need auto work or I need insurance. Like, I had a client that used to be an insurance company. I don't have as many of those anymore now that I've been on the other side of the fence for a while. It's interesting. Your network starts to shrink.
yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on over. Let's transition to the MSP transition best
Mm,
practices.
clever.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and this one we've kind of talked about this every now and then, but it's always good to bring up. OP says, "Hey folks, I wanted to see what the consensus here on best practices for a handoff to a new MSP. So you have an outgoing client to a new MSP. How do you handle it? How did you handle it in your MSP days?
I'm going to sum it up quick on this one. It's a small universe, and the company I was losing a client to today is going to be giving me one tomorrow, and there is no reason to make this any more difficult. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to hand over my policy manual and all of the documentation I have on them, but I'm certainly not going to be a jerk about it either, right? Here's the credentials, here's their info, their registry, um, happy to work with them on timing and coordinate things. It doesn't cost me any extra money to schedule the uninstall of RMM agents for a time that's convenient versus being a jerk about it and doing it 3 in the morning on the last day of the contract, right? Like, I would just try to be, without having a flow chart that I can provide to describe what this means. I just tried to be accommodating within reason for
Yep.
this. It's really as simple as that.
We run our onboarding and our offboarding as a project, and we actually have one of our project engineers who's an onboarding offboarding. So everything
Mm-hmm.
kind of goes through them, and we have a strict like set of I mean, again, when I say it's a project, like all of the project tasks are outlined. It's ran by our project manager, and hand over our stuff. Here's the passwords and uninstall dates and everything like that. So yeah, we try to make it as simple as possible. As fun as it is to read the RMSP post where, hey, the outgoing MSP is being ridiculous. I mean, you don't want to be that guy, because
Like, why?
the reputation
Well,
is hand. And from a security side too, we're all in this together, right? Like if something happens, God forbid, to my MSP and I need help and I need hands on the ground, like if it is like a break glass emergency scenario, you wouldn't pass up on asking them for help, whether it's a mutual service agreement or something like that, right? So if you have that mutual respect for those, I mean, those are people that you can have in your back pocket, right? It could benefit you down the road.
I agree. There is absolutely no reason to be a jerk about this, because think about it. You, at least at one point, I hope, cared about the overall well-being of this client, right? You want them to succeed, and yeah, sometimes the exit is not friendly. Maybe they're angry with you. Maybe it's just as simple as pricing. They can't afford you anymore. Maybe you messed up. Whatever. There's just no reason not to be accommodating to it. And in fact, think about clients that have left, especially if it was for something like price. They come back.
Yep.
Right? And if what they remember of you is, you made my life really difficult to switch providers, they might not come back even if they can afford you again. There's just absolutely no reason to be a jerk about any of this. I know I've said that like 4 times, but like, it's just incredulous to me that anyone would make onboarding and offboarding difficult intentionally. Right? It's difficult enough as is, looking for information all over the place that may not have been documented or any of that stuff. Like, what? Getting those emails from other providers that would say something like, firewalls this was always a big one, like firewalls getting ripped out at 4:45 p.m. exactly on the 25th. Like, okay, well, do you mind waiting one day because my new one's coming in the 26th? And like, some people would say no. It's crazy.
Yeah, it goes back to our previous story about the referrals. I mean, that's a source of referrals right there, right? You have that negative reputation, and now that's potentially affecting your reputation, your referral system. So, I mean, we've had clients who've given us a notice, and it's like, hey, we're running into issues or something, and we can't completely offboard. Like, be accommodating, like, obviously within reason, but yeah, no reason to be that. So, yeah, have an offboarding procedure and work the best you can within reason.
I had one outgoing provider that, we were trying to coordinate switching out the firewall. I think it was a Sonic wall. And they had some, not complicated, but just more than your typical rule set of a couple ingoing services. And I said, okay, would you mind giving me a copy of the config, right? You don't have to give me any custom stuff, so let me know what ports are being forwarded so I can not have them be disrupted. You know what they sent me? They sent me a tech support report out of SonicWall. And if you've never seen those, it's a plain text file that you have to like parse. Totally useless. I stayed up until like 3 a.m. one night, combing through like millions of lines of text to figure out what ports were open.
When it could have just been a screenshot.
Yeah, and no joke, I told the client about that, and that destroyed their relationship with the old MSP.
So, all right. Well, as always, just be a good person. So let's.
You're not wrong, Ray. Yeah. That was a bad night.
I'm going to skip ahead here because I have 2 stories from the sysadmin subreddit and I have one more from the MSP. So I'm going to throw an audible. Sorry, Ray, but we're going to do the "Do you have an A-team" story, because this was supposed to be on the previous MSP Community Live episode. They didn't get to it. So Matt and I are going to tackle this now. So this person posted, do you have an A team? I had this idea, which I wasn't able to see through to completion at MSP a few years ago, about the need to establish an A team, which would take on higher risk projects and advanced billing rates. This was in response to myself being pulled off regular M365 Azure to take care of some 11th hour oddball items that the account manager said was no problem. All IT, no .NET. So what are the thoughts on you have an A team, B team, C team?
I'll tell you what, if I was a client, I wouldn't want to know I'm being serviced by the C team, that's for sure.
Yeah, you want everyone's on the A team. Because then it goes to like, well, yeah, why, like, if you're gonna bill me for this, why am I not getting the A team, or like, is there different billing for that? So, I mean, is that something, being in a leadership position, is that something that you you distinguished, or?
So we did not have anything that was like the A team. We did have some engineers, techs, whatever term you want to use, that were obviously higher level and were more capable of walking into like an unknown environment and figuring out what was going on. But that's just your higher level engineers. I don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm imagining the fire alarm going off and like deploying the emergency team saying, hey, we need the really good guys today. Like you just have some engineers who, from a resource management perspective, know that, hey, this is something weird. Let me send one of these guys in, but they're not delineated as being on a different team.
I mean,
I will say, oh God,
say we on our team, we have a separate, we're fortunate enough to have a separate projects team, to where that's all they work on. They're not doing day-to-day tickets, but inevitably, because they're at that level, I mean, we don't really have like a tier system, but if you've exhausted all your resources and you need some sort of weird 11th hour MacGyver, like, take escalations. I mean, even, me myself, like being on the security side and doing other things, because I have 20 plus years of tech and MSP experience, like I get pulled into these too, because I've seen a lot and done a lot, right? So
mhm.
I wouldn't say that's an A team. It's just your kind of your escalation path, and who to, your resources and who to contact to get what you need.
Yeah, exactly. We're the same thing. Like our projects team would do escalations at some point, but even then, you need some procedure around it because your projects team has projects they have to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you end up in this internal politics issue of, man, are the escalation guys escalating too quickly? Or do I have too much time being spent on projects and now my schedules are delayed on that side? Um, so I don't know that you need to have this idea of like the hero team, like wearing capes and everything, going in to save the day. Um, I think it's just important to identify the resources who would be around for that. And okay, let's be honest, all of us in this industry, we all think it's us. Um, whether or not that's true, every post on the internet is going to say, "I'm the highest escalation point in my company." Um, just think about who you know who you're going to send in. I saw Ray's comment; he does have something similar to this. We didn't really designate anyone like that. It was
We
just, hey, if someone's coming, if someone like this really hit the fan, here's who you call. But
Yeah,
they didn't have any special title or anything.
we're pretty good on the like within the projects teams. Like, we kind of know like people's, I guess, strengths and stuff. Like, we have, a guy who's Microsoft expert, or um networking and things like that. So I mean, I would say like our project team's probably that Navy SEALs, and we get together, and one of us has got to figure it out, or we work together to figure it out.
Yeah.
Um but I mean, I like that idea. Or, if you have like if you're a one man or a 2-man shop, then you're automatically the A team and the B team and the C team and the DEF. You get to be all of those.
So that's a good point, though. Like I know we joked about it at the beginning of this segment, but if you do have something like that, I almost question. Like, I feel like it's important to not let your client know that it exists or you're moving to them, because it's just going to lead to why am I not getting these guys all the time?
Yeah. And so when you say, well, they charge $800 an hour, and
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, any other comments or anything on that at all?
No, I think we're good. I like that story.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you guys want to be on the A team, you know what you need to do now. Get the van, paint the side, get the gold chain. All right, we're gonna go to the sysadmin subreddit here for a couple of these
Changing
stories.
gears.
So yeah, these are a little more fun on the technical side, and get to dive in a little bit. So this first one here is
technical side. I don't remember how to do any of that.
I know, but I think you'll find this one pretty humorous. This sysadmin posts that his director yelled at him for a repeating token ID number. So he is in charge of the what I'm assuming is those little RSA secure ID tokens. If you had to carry one of those around, I felt so cool when I finally got one of those. I'm like, ooh, this feels like secret. Like I can put this on my keychain. It looks cool. Anyway, the director at one point during the day got a token with all 8s. And he's mad because how the hell is this considered secure? So he's like, hey, it's possible, right? It's a random number generated. Like that's such a low possibility, but it's possible, right? Like it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. And he told him he should go play the lottery. But then the director took that in the wrong case and said, well, I'm not sure what we're paying for when this is the result. So yeah, ever had anything like that?
You know what my 2 cents on this is? Ask the director what he thinks is insecure about it. To me, it's primarily just not primarily. It's obviously a lack of education on how those generation algorithms work and just how the entire system works. So simply say, Mr. Director, what is the issue you have with this, right? Like what to you is insecure about the number repeating, and go down the education hole. The play the lottery quip to me sounds a little dismissive of the concern. He genuinely may not know how this works and why that can happen, and brushing it off like that, while probably feeling good, and I admit I may do the same thing in the heat of discussion, would not be productive.
Ray, anyone remember the PayPal football? I don't remember that. Can you either comment or hop off? I'm interested in this story.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so basically what it was is it was a key fob. Honestly, I think it predates the RSA, or it was back when the RSA was only like for the super, the Fortune 500, that kind of thing. This is going back to the early 2000s, and it was exactly that. It was a TOTP generator, but it was a physical device about the size of a Flipper Zero, and you kept it on your keychain. But it was in the shape of a football, or that wasn't by design, but it looked like a football. And so it got the nickname the PayPal football.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that. The RSA tokens was the first one I got on, and I was working. It was like a help desk for all the 800 numbers in the nation. It was a weird happenstance because at the call center I was on.
Wow.
Yeah, so tangent here. That was like my first tech job. Is I worked for a call center, and there was multiple accounts within this call center. So the first one I was on was internet tier 1/tier 2 for an ISP, and then that account closed out, and then I got moved to a prepaid cell phone company. But they also had like Procter and Gamble, like client response. They also had like a very old antivirus called Zone Alarm. If you remember that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dating myself here. And then the coveted one was this 800 help desk because they got bonuses, they got paid more, but it was like super strict to get on it. Once people were on there, they didn't leave. So inevitably they did have 2 people like retire. So they had 2 or 3 openings. And I interviewed, went well, and then we did 6 weeks of training, and I caught on really quick. And they're like, okay, well, you get this, so we're going to put you on the night rotation because you can be self-sufficient. So I would come in and work like 1 to like 10 or 2 to 11, depending on the time. And then we had an overnight guy because it had to be staffed 24 hours a day. There's 12 of us. And again, this had something to do with all the 800 numbers in the United States. And then there was actually a hot site because our call center was located right next to the airport. There was a hot site in Denver, and if anything were to happen to the building, they would get us to Denver, like the entire team, within like 3 or 4 hours. Like they had all of this like contingency stuff planned out. But all this crazy stuff. But the problem is when I would do like the night shift, I would pop into work and I would be the lowest in the call queue. And then most of the time, if you're an 800 number, you're 8 to 5. So I would come in, be the lowest of the call queue. I really wouldn't get a call. And then there really isn't anyone calling from 5 to like 11, right? So I was on this account for about a year and a half or so, and I took 2 calls. So to this day, I have no idea what I did. I have no idea what like I was supposed to do. Like I lost all sense of like training. Like if I would have had to take in a call, I would have probably no idea what to do. I went a little crazy because like all I do is play flash games and browse the internet. And I begged, I was like, I'll take the demotion. I just need to do something at work. So I
Wow.
took a demotion to a supervisor of the prepaid cell phone company. And then I became a team manager shortly after that. But yeah, I mean, that was my time on the 800 account. So, but we had the RSA tokens. And I remember like opening the cabinet and there was like trays of them. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like it felt like some sort of like secret spy or something. Cause I had this and it was in the, the early 2000s. So
That's cool in the same way that the first time in your life that you own a business trip, you think it's really cool. And then it just becomes like the norm.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we got one more here.
We have time for another one, right?
Yeah, I think we got time for one more. So how many times have we ran into this one? This is universal for anybody in tech. The title alone, I mean, it's being blocked by your network. So you're working with a vendor, you're trying to log into something and it doesn't work. And the vendor immediately, with 100% confidence, states, your network is blocking this. Not my problem. How do you handle this?
This is so the way to handle this is to remind yourself that this is a intersocial people issue, not a technical issue. I mean, ultimately, it obviously is a technical problem that we're working towards, but I find that this is sometimes said in response to a sysadmin 100% sure that it's the software and the application. And naturally, the application vendor gets extremely defensive. If it's right off the bat from that with the application vendor, just in response to a support request, yeah, sometimes you have to be a jerk about it and show evidence and provide evidence. The biggest thing with all of this, though, is to just be matter of fact. The way to lose these discussions is to start getting any emotion into it. It's not exactly the right word, but I find some people in MSPs and in our industry, and I'm certainly not innocent of this, can get like almost vindictive or vengeful, and like you have to prove this vendor wrong, and the entire relationship just breaks down.
Yep.
If
I mean,
you both
100%.
can focus
I've
on,
been
yeah,
I've been guilty of that. Like where we're like working with a vendor and it's like I know this isn't on my end, so like freaking make a dissertation where I open a Word document and here's 20 pages of freaking proof that it's not my issue, and like here's your thing and like it's on yours, now fix this damn thing. But obviously then mature and realize like you said, it's not a tech as a person issue, right? So like, hey, I'm not working against you, I am working with you, vendor. Like here is my configurations, here are the facts. Like what else could it be? Like, let's work together. What other things do you want me to check? Because I can check whatever on my network or get the right people involved. Like, let's work together and figure this out. And yeah,
Yes.
it's but it does take some mistakes and a little bit of maturity to get that.
What happens when you send that 20-page dissertation? Because I'll tell you what happens when I receive one. It goes to the bottom of the email list to reply to, or it accidentally, quote unquote, got caught in the spam filter.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as you start getting argumentative and pointing fingers, it's just, you're souring the relationship, and now you've lost the trust. And again, the whole, like, yes, they're vendors and or clients, but they're partners, right? Like, I can name a handful of my vendors that I legitly, I'm like, yeah, we're partners, even though they're a vendor or the client and everything. But I
Yeah.
don't want to do anything to ruin that partner relationship with that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those assume good intentions, and really, it's not easy to do, like you mentioned, and it's something you never completely grow out of. I don't want to be here and say, yeah, just do this. It's so easy. It's tough, especially in the heat of an upset client on the other end. But really put some effort into just staying factual and assume that everyone involved is trying to solve the issue until there's a reason not to. And the reality is, even if the vendor's being unhelpful, you still need to be helpful. Just like, even if this ultimately ends up, look, Mr. Client, I've been very nice and very like matter of fact with this vendor, and they're just not moving. They can get involved as well, like get in touch with their accountant, all of that stuff. But if what you have to show is a back and forth insult driven, these guys are idiots, it's not going to go anywhere. And the last thing, when you start going down that road of like being vindictful and like so sure that the problem is on the vendor's end, that's the time it's going to be a misconfiguration on your switch or
Oh
something.
yeah, 100%, 100%. But hold on, Matt. What if let's role play a little bit? Hey, I'm with the security camera company, and I've put in my information. Can you just open port 3389 so I can remote in and make sure I can manage our DVR system?
Why did they always do that?
Say how many times have you gotten that one?
Either that one or unencrypted HTTP to the
Yep.
management interface of the DVR.
Yeah. So how do you handle those situations?
It's another people skills thing, right? It's one of those things that you have to take off your engineer goggles for a second and just explain why you can't do that. Not like, it's so tempting to just say like no, F off. Really getting into, there's a very diplomatic way to say no to these kind of things, and I don't have a script. I wish I did. I would share it, but it's something that comes with experience working with these guys for a while. um, you just need to explain why that's an issue and why you shouldn't do it.
Yep. Well, I think we've solved all the world's problems once again. Until
Yeah.
next week, where we have more. Any closing words or anything that you want to pitch or plug?
No, nothing to pitch. If you're not registered for IT Nation coming up in November, I hope to see you there. And otherwise, a very important baseball weekend for the Mets. So I'm excited about that as well.
If you guys haven't gotten enough of me, if you stay tuned for about 40 minutes or so, we're doing an IR game live stream with the guys at Fifth Wall. Fifth Wall is a great insurance broker company that works with MSPs and clients. I can't say enough good things about them. And I'm really excited to throw them through the ringer. Let's see how they handle an incident. So we got that live stream coming up at 11:30 Central Time today. So find that on LinkedIn, YouTube, all sorts of places. So I highly recommend checking that out, because the Fifth Wall guys are great. They are forces of personality, and we're gonna put them through the ringer a little bit. And then we have our next open game for anybody to join next week on the 27th.
All right. Well, with that, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.